Welcome to Backstory and Beyond with your host, Ward Camp, seeker, innovator, and president of Northwood Retail. As Ward travels the country, he'll share the industry insights he's gained over a 3 decades-long retail career, introduce you to trailblazing business leaders and disruptive founders, and uncover the real deal about some of the greatest cities in the world. This week, Ward is in San Diego with father-daughter duo Kevin Murray and Kelli Murray Larson, founders of Riley & Crew, artistic and imaginative clothing for the modern child. They'll break down how Kelli leveraged an existing social media following to successfully launch a debut collection, why philanthropy was built into the business model from the start, and when Kevin and Kelli knew it was time to expand into the world of brick and mortar. All that and more on this episode of Backstory and Beyond.
It's a beautiful day here in San Diego, one of my favorite cities. I am with 2 special guests, Kevin Murray and his daughter, Kelli Murray Larson, the founders of Riley & Crew, which began in 2014. It's a premium, upscale children's clothing line. I want to welcome you to Backstory and Beyond.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So you were an illustrator by nature, Kelli. All of a sudden, I think you saw a real gap in the market. So maybe just start with how Riley & Crew was born. And it was kind of born online and through some of the best specialty boutiques in the country, but maybe just walk back to the beginning.
Yeah. So, I've always been very artistic and creative and went to school. I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise in LA. Right out of that, I knew I wanted to work in fashion. Before that really, but my dad's always been in that world. And so he has been a silkscreen printer for years. He started his business in his garage when I was young.
I started my screen printing company the year she was born.
Right.
She grew up with me doing this kind of work.
Mm-hmm. And then he had, when I was in high school, started a brand. It was an action sports brand called Jedediah. So that was kind of where I was introduced to this whole idea of branding and going to trade shows and what it meant to create a line. And I remember just kind of being very inspired by that whole world, which is part of the reason I decided to go to fashion school. And so straight out of there, I worked for him doing that brand.
We worked together for 6 or 7 years, you know. I just saw how talented she was.
I learned so much and just fell in love with, creating lines and really graphic design. I was specifically drawn to illustration and the graphic design side of things. And at that same time was trying to differentiate myself as an artist. So I started a website and a blog, started sharing about my own personal art, which was kind of on the side of that business, and kind of realized I started gaining traction in just a follower base of my own personal art style. I really had this group of women who were interested in my art and my fashion kind of simultaneously while I was working with my dad at the company. And then I had my daughter. So that was when I was really introduced to this whole world of children's clothing, which prior to becoming a mom, you don't really know about it or research it. Like, you just don't care.
Right.
But then I became a mom and I'm like, wait a minute, like, where's all the cute baby clothes? Like, all I could find was Target or Bye Bye Baby at the time, or like, it was pink and blue and ladybugs and trucks. And I'm like, where is like the more aesthetic? Like, I found some European brands that were good, but I was like, it just seems like there's such a gap in the market. And so at the time, I think I had a newborn baby. I decided I wanted to be at home. So that was when I kind of shifted into being more of a full-time freelance artist. So I learned about licensing and royalties and, so trying to figure out the whole freelance artist thing. So that was really a fun period, but it was a grind. Like, that was just constantly searching for the next project. But then when I realized that there was this gap in the market, that I felt like with my history with him and like what we did with the brand, the action sports brand, paired with now my passion in art and illustration. And my art's very, whimsical and young and just translates right into children's wear. And so I got together with my dad and I was like, what do you think about partnering with me and starting a children's brand?
And it was like, wow, it just felt right,
Mm-hmm. I think the idea was very small in the beginning. It was like, hey, could you help me like create this small line and see how it goes? And it kind of just snowballed from there. And we started a Shopify, ordered like 2,500 units, and it sold out in like a week. And we were like, oh.
Wow.
And really what made it work was that I had this built-in follower base of 10 years of working and being an artist and sharing my work and having a following on Instagram that were young mothers and interested in the art that I was creating. And so I had this built-in following that already was ready to be customers. So that helped tremendously.
The interesting part of kind of our initial journey too, Kelli mentioned the first production run we did in LA and sold out in a week. We thought that was fun. Let's try that again. And so we tried it a second time. And it took us about 6 months to get another line designed, developed, produced, and online and available. And the same thing happened. It sold out right away. But the really interesting thing that happened that I think separates Riley and Crew from anything I've ever done before in my career is in that 6-month period of time, we were contacted directly through DMs on our Instagram from retailers asking how they could work with us. And I'm not talking about a dozen or two, it was a few hundred. And my whole career, I've been going to trade shows, I've been selling brands, I've been selling products. It doesn't usually work that way. And so we were contacted directly by so many people. And that's when we looked at each other and said, this could really work. And Kelli shared our kind of the genesis of our story really well. The only thing I would add to what she said was we both have a very similar work ethic. You know, we're stubborn in kind of the similar ways, you know. We want to push through. We want to accomplish things. We want to make sure that we follow through on things that we say. I mean, we've just known so many things about each other, and her gifts and talents are different from my gifts and talents. And so we believe this really sort of unique partnership. And in the middle of kind of our evolution, people would talk to her and say, what's your secret sauce? And she would say, you know, my dad knowing the business, all the sourcing, setting up sales infrastructures and like really running a business. And then they'd ask me and I'd say, well, it's Kelli. It's her aesthetic. It's her design. It's her taste. It's the way she puts everything together. So we have...
Yeah, it really complements each other.
So we have that mutual kind of respect for what each other does. And yet our gifts and talents are so different, but yet they come together in such I think a beautiful way. I mean, we're father and daughter, but we're good buddies too, you know?
Right. That's probably really fun.
Yeah.
So Kelli, where do you come up with your inspirations or find them? And then how do you incorporate them? Is it what you see on a daily basis, travel, you know?
Yeah. So for as long as I can remember, I've just loved cute illustrations. So I just remember drawing cute little animals, and nature is very inspiring to me. So even before I started the brand, when I was an artist and just drawing and sketching, I'm very inspired by animals and nature and trees and sunsets. And so nature is a huge inspiration to me. A lot of it is like bringing myself back to my childhood and what inspired me and where my mind went. I've never subscribed to any trend forecasting sites. I know that's maybe a no-no, but like I feel like I've always just liked what I like, and it's just I've tried to stay true to what I like, which is maybe sounds naive, but I feel like I'm in the world. I see the trends. I know what's happening. I have a pulse on like what other people are doing. So I feel like as long as I'm in tune to like what is happening in the market, we always are able to like touch on different trends. But for the most part, I feel like it's very authentic. It's a lot of animals. It's very organic. I don't know if that answered the question
I think
appropriately.
it answers it really well, because I think it's really hard, you know, with your illustration background, it's really hard to pick off.
Yeah, I think people now like be like, oh, that looks like Riley and Crew, you know, which is kind of fun because you're like, oh, like we have like a specific style that is recognizable, and that's what you want as a brand.
I think it's got a little bit of a Ralph Lauren-ish type feel to it where people recognize, you know, in the early days, it's that very clean look.
Yeah, it's timeless. And I feel like, that's one of the biggest compliments is when I get from customers or just people who I know that are like, I always have my little box of Riley and Crew that I pass down to all my kids. That's so cool to hear because it's like the pieces that they want to save and pass down for generations. It speaks to the quality and the style that it is one of those things that could be timeless.
You know, 2 years ago, I was on a call with the top analyst on Wall Street about the CEO of Old Navy, had just left. I didn't realize at the time they're 55% of all children's clothing. But I think there's a big gap for this elevated look, right? And you guys, I think, pride yourself on the look is recognizable and consistent, and maybe expand on.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the very beginning, that's what I was looking for, right? And I just didn't feel like I could find that. I like to hunt online and like find little unique brands and boutiques and stuff. And there was a few that were doing it back in the day before I started the brand, but they weren't well known. They were small. And so I feel like it's been cool because I have such a specific point of view and what I want to see. But I felt like a big part of our growth came from wholesale and getting into all of these boutiques who had really good points of view, and their store was curated really beautifully, and they carried all the brands that I saw that I was like, okay, that makes sense. I love that. And so it really started so grassroots and so authentic to kind of who we are and what we believed in, you know, and it's really women, it's moms. Like a lot of these store owners are mothers, and I love that was where we started and how it grew.
You know, I always say it's a brush fire that turns into a wildfire, and it sounds like, you know, the brush fire you've already gone through, and now the growth is really taking off.
Well, I really hope that people do realize that we absolutely love what we do. We didn't create this as a commodity business to go out and sling stuff and sell everything we can. We started the company because she wanted to create her aesthetics within a children's clothing brand, and we just nurtured that from the very beginning. I think we tried to protect it as much as we possibly could, and we don't have aspirations to be in Target or go mass. We love this industry, and I think the industry has loved us back.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, your new first brick and mortar store looks fantastic. I think you said, you know, it was just an idea and you're going to test it out.
We're going to learn. It'll be a real touch point to a consumer. You know, face-to-face encounters with consumers are so valuable. And we weren't ready 5 years ago to have a retail store.
I had really little kids. Like it was also like that was a whole part of it in my head. It's like it's always been like a bucket list dream thing. The time and attention that I've wanted to place into like having those stores hasn't been there yet. And I feel like now we're getting there.
The business element to that too is that our inventory levels keep growing. We can replenish, replace. We're just at a level of maturity within our overall company that now it made sense.
When we opened our store, I went in really early before anyone got there, and this was just doing finishing touches, and I like stood back and looked at everything, and I was like, wow, we created this. Like, dang, I'm like really proud of this. You know, we've worked really hard.
It gets emotional, right? You know, when you do take that moment. But in doing the research, Riley and Crew comes from your children's name. I think you have another one, Quincy, and I think there's a line around that, but maybe speak to.
Yeah, so Riley is now 13.
Yeah.
I started the brand when Crew was 2 weeks old. That was wild.
That's probably interesting.
Yeah, so Crew's now 10. And then
Riley's 13, and that's why
this year we're doing a teen line. She's helping me out with keeping it in the family. No, she loves it. She's very fashion-y and like wants to take over the business. If you ask her, she's like, I'm going to take it over one day. I'm like, yeah, girl.
She said that in an interview once,
I was like,
and that
wow.
surprised us both.
Okay. But I love that because she's very passionate about it too. She's 13, Crew's 10, and then my baby, that's Quincy May. She's 7, no longer a baby. So we started Riley and Crew in 2014. And then people just wanted more baby basics. So we were a little bit more fashion forward. We had more complicated silhouettes. It was a lot of art driven pieces. And they were like, we need some basics. We need some things for more baby basics. And so we were tossing around the idea, okay, do we open a retail store? Do we go like the retail route? Or do we want to like do this secondary, like we call it a sister brand and have it be this baby basics collection? And at the time we were like, okay, we feel like it would be smarter for us right now to do the line. We know how to do this. It's not like a new endeavor. And sure enough, that was the best decision we've ever made because it like doubled our business because basically we could sell a whole entire new collection and brand to our existing customer base, to all of the retailers we currently were in. And so really the retail thing wasn't even a conversation, like opening our brick and mortar, because we were so busy with the 2 lines and all that comes with that and the marketing. So it's fun to look back at that decision and realize that was the right decision. And that, because that went so well, is the reason we were like, okay, let's do this one more time. We started a brand called Nora Lee,
Right.
which, because I felt like when I went out in the market, I really struggled finding party dresses and dresses for weddings for little flower girls that weren't like super gaudy, cheesy dresses from Macy's. Like, where do you go for these more beautiful but timeless and a little bit vintage inspired? And so that was where I was like, I feel like there's also a niche for this. And so we started that, and that's been really fun. That's our smallest collection, but it's very whimsical and like perfect for weddings and baptisms and birthday parties.
And a couple years ago, too, is when we made the decision to bring all three of the brands under what we call the Riley and Crew Collective. And it's all one URL now on our website, and you can buy all the brands together at one time, which we feel like was a really good decision for us too. So when we go to trade shows and we advertise ourselves, it's the Riley and Crew Collective. It's the family of brands. And part of what we say is that it kind of dresses your child at every stage of growing up, from coming home from the hospital to being a flower girl at a wedding. There's also a platform on our website of pre-loved product, where a consumer that buys new product from Riley and Crew or Quincy May or Nora Lee, when their child outgrows the product, there's a platform of reselling it consumer to consumer. And it's a very vibrant community, and it's an opportunity for them to recoup 50, 60, 70% of whatever they bought from Riley and Crew through pre-loved product, which I think is great.
Wow. So, as you're thinking about the brand Riley and Crew, is it globally sold?
Yeah, the growth that we've had in the U.S. has really helped us propel an international business as well. So right now we're in about 700 individually owned and operated specialty boutiques in the United States. We are in about 30 Nordstrom locations now, so that's part of it, and about 12 Bloomingdale's locations. So globally, we're in about 1,000 doors.
Wow. I was sent a book before we started our first season, and it was the founder's mentality. And there's 3 principles. You're the insurgent, you see disruption. And then the second's managing the business, because you're always kind of bootstrapping it, right? Is, you sell it on Shopify, got to make sure the money's coming in. And the last one's, I'm obsessed with the front line. And I do think it kind of summarizes how founder businesses are. Out of those 3, who's obsessed with the front line, who's worrying about the business? Some people just have blinders, and it's all about their line. And then some are really obsessed with the competitive nature of the market. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts.
I think you're the one with the blinders on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm for sure the blinder, because when you talk about that, I'm like, I am so in my tunnel, just designing away. Like, our line is so big and it's so robust, and we have so many styles and SKUs, and I just have to keep my head down and keep designing, keep creating. So I definitely am the one with blinders on. I'm not thinking like top line. I'm not thinking, business, where should we be going next? And that's why it's the beauty of having him. I mean, he gets to have that bird's eye view, seeing where we should be moving and what direction we should be going. He's at more of the trade shows also, where he'll get feedback from our customers to see what their needs are. And then my husband also works with us. So he does all of like the web analytics. He's a genius with like ad spend and marketing. I'm not touching that world. He's so good at that. He's so good at what he does. And then I feel like my gifting is just strictly in like visionary design, like all of that. So I feel like between the 3 of us, we have a good handle on all the categories.
I mean, as the president and CEO, I kind of have to have a touch point on everything.
So and you're on the front line a lot.
Yeah, so I'm for sure on the front line. But it's funny, I feel like what's inside of me though is I'm a product guy first, right? And I just know that any business can figure out a way to make it work or be successful if the product is really good. So I still think all of it comes from product first. But I mean, as we've grown, we're up to almost 60 employees now. That takes up a lot of my time.
You got an HR department, when you have 60 people, right?
Yeah, and you're looking at the HR department, So it's, but I think Kelly and I would both say that one of the greatest joys though is the team that we have. And we know that there's people inside our building that will just run through a wall for us. And we so much appreciate that, because it does take all of us to make it work.
Well, I think, Kevin, to your point, it's the product, but, you can have a great product. You got to have great people to sell the product as
Sure.
well, that really are invested in it. Like you said, it's amazing if you find the right team and you build the right culture and you have the right product. It's the absolute, recipe for success.
Yeah, you
can
need
have a
all
great
the
product.
components.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good team or you don't have it's hard without a good product to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this thing can get really big if you have great people. Something really, I think, near and dear to your heart, Kelli, is your foundation that you started in 2017. A lot of money's been raised and something really important.
Yeah, I kind of learned this actually from my dad. He, in the business with Jedediah, part of it was, he gave back, and he's always infused that into his business model.
You talk about how we get inspired. A friend of mine gave me a book a long time ago, the Jacques Chenard book, Let My People Go Surfing, I think was the title of the book. But it talked about his journey and his creating the 1% for the planet and how he integrated philanthropy into a business model. And that really struck a chord with me. And so even through my friend group, I knew a contractor who donated one Saturday a month to go to a homeless shelter and do construction projects for them, like donating his time. You can do this in so many ways, right? And so for us in apparel sales, the foundation of Jedediah was to create financial resources for those in need. So when we started Riley and Crew, and we started a foundation, and Kelli and I have actually traveled to some crazy places in the world to work with some of the nonprofits that we've worked with. So it's been wonderful. And now with being in the children's clothing industry, to specialize in children and mothers and work with organizations like the Make-A-Wish Foundation and Love Does and Big Brothers Big Sisters and
Angels Foster Network.
Yeah, foster agencies and on and on and on.
Yeah, our focus is really just on women and children and really families and keeping families together. And we love that through what we do as a brand, we're able to give back a part of that to our community and beyond. I mean, we work with some different global ones, but also right in our backyard. We worked with Love Does to create a teen mom house where like young teens are able to go with their new baby and get an education while someone watches their baby. It's like things like that where I'm like, that's like really making a difference in our hometown. So it's very special and close to our hearts that we're able to make a difference through the work that we do in our business.
And really the decisions on who we donated to and where the money went and where all the grants went have all been internal decisions. I mean, mostly Kelli and I, but we also get our staff involved. One of our key staff members' daughter went through childhood leukemia. And so we've given to cancer centers for childhood cancer that she's connected with. So we've tried to make it personal. We've brought our staff in to help make some of those decisions. But as we move into 2025, we've actually started the first seeds of reaching out to our community to have them recommend a grant. So we would like our extended community to give us feedback with nonprofits that are doing amazing work in their community all around, child welfare and mothers in need. As long as it fits into that ethos and that category, we're more than willing to look at other grant applications. So we want to go beyond just the walls of our employees on who we donate to. We'd like to open that up to the community. So we're sharing that now through social media for people to fill out grants and send to us for $10,000 grants to help support, wonderful people doing wonderful things in their community.
Well, I think if you have success, it is upon us to help others, right? So hats off to you. As we wrap up, we like to explore the real deal of the towns we're in. So obviously being in San Diego, I think one of the great cities in America, we love to find out what you guys love to do, whether it's sports, raising your kids, things like that. Just what are the real deals of San Diego, places you like to eat, the beach, whatever.
Well, it's our life, my wife and I mean, we've been married 42 years, and our life is so full right now with grandchildren. So Kelli has 3 children of her own, but we have 9 grandchildren in total, ranging from 7 to 16. And my wife is in high demand.
Right.
They're all local. I mean, we all live close to each other. And so it just fills up this big space in our life, which which we're so happy about and so thankful for. So that's a big part of our life. I happen to be an avid golfer, so always grew up playing sports and love sports. And Kelli was a dynamite little softball player and played a little basketball. And so sports has always been a big deal for me. So I'm an avid golfer and try to play as much golf as I can. And my wife plays, so it's something that we can do together as well. I think as far as San Diego, I mean, Moonlight Beach, I know is kind of special to Kelli too, because she once she moved away from home and got her own place, she was in Encinitas. And so Moonlight Beach has always been a special place for us when we go to the beach.
Yeah, there's tons of great beaches here. I mean, go down to La Jolla. There's La Jolla Cove. You can like see all the seals sunbathing.
You
Del
go down
Mar.
there. Yeah, Del Mar.
I mean,
you have
Coronado's incredible. The sand's like so white and soft and
I think this is one of the best
expansive.
cities in the country to do a staycation.
Yeah.
You know, just, and sometimes as a local, like we have out of town guests stay with us a lot and they go out and do stuff we haven't done in 5 years, you know, and we live here. So some of our funnest vacations, like is renting a beach house in Mission Beach, you know, and just hang out there for 5 days. Even though we can be home in 20 minutes, it's like you're in this amazingly beautiful place and it's so fun. So we love doing staycations on beach cottages and things.
That's smart. What's the one thing everybody should see when they're in San Diego?
Well, it's the Riley and Crew store. At the
Right? That's 100%.
For me, I think it's going over the Coronado Bridge and just walking through the Hotel Del and going to the beach and having lunch at the Hotel Del right there on the sand. And I mean, we think that's one of the most special places.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
And maybe like hiking Torrey Pines and like right up there on the bluff
amazing.
And like looking over the whole ocean. It's like pretty breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Golf Torrey Pines.
Yeah. And then lastly, you know, what do you think the hidden gem is of San Diego?
I mean, we have 2 Michelin star restaurants, June de Jolie and then like Campfire, are both in Carlsbad right next to each other, actually, which are both incredible. The vibe's insane. Like, I love Campfire. It's more laid back, but they have like the best broccoli you've ever tasted, which is the weirdest thing you could ever say. But it's what keeps me coming back.
One of the best.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best
French restaurant. It's so good. Waverly is incredible. That's in Cardiff. That's like my go-to girls' night. Amazing drinks and appetizers and just such a cool atmosphere.
I don't know if there's anything hidden anymore, right? You know, every nook and cranny has been explored.
You know, there's the whole brewery scene.
Yeah, well, one of my factories is right down the street from Ballast Point. And I think that there were 70 microbreweries at one point in that Miramar, Mira Mesa area. Mm-hmm. Crazy. I think they do bus tours, so you could do that too.
Yeah. I think the track is one. You know, one season or opening day is a kind of a bucket list. You know, the sport is just, you know, you talk to people in the industry is struggling as it is, but I think it does bring people to.
Yeah, it's like iconic.
Yeah, it's iconic.
I mean, we also have the zoo and the Wild Animal Park and SeaWorld. If you're going to come visit, it's like you could go any of those places too. I mean, it's amazing for families and kids, and we have a lot here.
Probably the hidden gem is the weather. I think it's here in New Zealand is probably 2 of the only places that have this type of weather. I mean,
every couple of years we do some sort of dinner cruise on the harbor and stuff too. I mean, that's where you can see all the beauty of San Diego kind of in its glory, and it ends at sunset, you know, and you kind of see the city start to sparkle. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Where do we find you guys? And that's social handles, website, all that.
So RileyandCrew.com, that's RYLEEANDCRU.com. At Riley and Crew on Instagram, at Quincy May on Instagram, at shop_Nora Lee on Instagram. And then you can actually find all of those brands if you just go to RileyandCrew.com. Like we talked about earlier, there's a link to all of our brands up on the very top header. So you can go to Quincy May or Nora Lee. You can shop all the brands, check out with all the brands on one platform.
Well, I want to wrap up by saying thank you for taking the time. I know this is a busy season. And then just continued success with, you know, a brand that has your guys' name on it, and you guys have built it with your own hands and time and put the effort in. So I just want to thank Kelli. I want to thank you, Kevin. I want to thank you for being a guest today.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
having
conversation.
us.
Thank you, Ward. Appreciate it.
This has been Backstory and Beyond, hosted by Ward Kampf. To learn more about Northwood Retail or the destinations from today's episode, visit backstorybeyond.com.